Welcome back to the hunting grounds. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about three main components of keeping a big buck on your property. And that's shelter, food, and water. And we're going to show you an example of one of our properties and the monster buck that lives there. We all dream of having our own great hunting grounds. But in today's world, land nor money grows on trees. Here on the hunting grounds, we teach you cost-effective techniques of how to improve your very own hunting grounds.
Soybeans on average on a food plot are about 2.5 foot tall.
And pass on those traditions to our youth that are being lost. That's pretty sweet, man. Here on the hunting grounds, we don't just shoot them, we grow them. Now I want to talk to you guys about a problem that a lot of you guys run into during preseason that we've run into here. We've located a big 6x6 12-point typical buck on this property, and the first thing is we want to go, how do we keep that buck on this property? What do we need to change about this property? But there are probably components here that's keeping this buck on this 20-acre tract, and let's talk about those three components, and that's shelter, food, and water. Now let's talk about the first two components that's keeping the buck on this property, and that's food and shelter. Now this area that we have here, this is a really thick area. It's been burned over, it's a clear cut, and there's a lot of vegetation that's growing up in here, and that allows for good bedding, and it's a good food source. That buck can come in here, he can eat, and so this is definitely one of the reasons that buck is staying on this property, but it's definitely not the main reason. This is the main component that's keeping the buck on this property is this water source. Now again, you have to have food, shelter, and water. If you have those three main components, you're going to be able to sustain a deer herd on your property, and that's why the buck is here. So instead of going in and planting food plots, what we want to do now is put up trail cams, monitor him, and seeing when we can get in and where he's at so we can hang some deer stands, so when deer season comes around, we know where he's at during the daytime hours and we'll be able to arrow that buck. Now let's talk water source. Water source was a key element that was keeping the deer on that piece of property. Now they play a huge role in the deer's everyday life, especially here when you're dealing with 100+ degree temperatures for 3 weeks straight. Now we have a few ponds on this property. We have one that's not so good, it's a little older, and then the one behind us here, it's a lot better. Now if you take a look at the other pond, it's an older pond, it's down in a valley. And deer, they're prey, and so when they're going down there to get a drink, not only are they losing their visual sense by getting down and they're looking at the water, but they feel like they can be ambushed when they're going down in a ravine just to get a drink of water. Now behind us, this pond is a lot better off. It's up on a flat surface, the deer can come in, when they're getting a drink they can still see everything around, even though the water's a little low because we have been in a drought here. Now when you're dealing with streams and rivers, you know, stream works great. It's natural, it's quiet, it's clear, and it's good flowing water. But if you deal with a river, the river's fast flowing, again, you're taking away that sense of hearing that they usually have, because they are worried about being preyed upon by other animals. So now you've seen why the big buck is here on the property. You're probably wondering just how big this buck is. Well, let's take a look at the trail cam photos and pictures of this big boy on the trail. Well, that's it for this week's video. I hope you guys are finding big bucks in your property, and if you aren't, I hope that these tactics help you in doing that. So keep the youth involved, manage your property, remember, stay tuned into other videos, and as always, have a better than average day.